Welcome to our first Boundless Life event, Work from Anywhere Families, the new employee benefit. As more companies roll out work from anywhere for their teams, whether it be for a month, 2 months, or for permanently, working parents are no doubt excited about experiencing new cultures and new adventures with their family. But a question does remain from the perspective of working parents. How do you create a continuity of community for yourself and for your children? How can you ensure that the children are cared for in a way that facilitates not just the parents to be able to work from anywhere, but for the kids' development, their well-being, and their education? Thank you for joining Boundless Life and our panel of thought leaders in the remote workspace, and whom all have combined remote work and travel and work from anywhere. These are people who regularly travel with their family, with children, while also working. So today we'll explore together what the future looks like for working parents and their family. We'll cover issues like, what are the challenges that parents must navigate? Where can they find support? But above all, what are the lifelong benefits that make this lifestyle boundlessly rewarding? We'll be talking to our panel today about all these topics and hear their experiences and insights, and before handing it over to you, the audience, for Q&A. So let's get to know each other. We have Rowena Hennigan, founder of Row Remote Work Consultancy, and remote work expert. That's a tongue twister for me. We have John Lee, co-founder of the Work from Anywhere team and global tax consultant. We have Lona Aliyah, head of revenue at Safety Wing, and that's the remote health insurance specialist. And Lona is also an entrepreneur in her own right, having founded and advised startups. And we also have Reka Megon, the co-founder and head of education at Boundless Life. Thank you for being here, friends. And today I'll be moderating. I'm Jamie Comer. I'm an Olympic silver medalist with Team USA in water polo, a consultant in well-being, a transition guide and coach, and a work from anywhere family. Okay, let's get started here. Let's do it. Okay, thanks for being here, friends. I can sense the energy. We're ready. Okay, so let's get a lay of the land. Let's look at the big picture of where we've been and where we're headed, right? Ro, if you want to take this one, how do you think work has changed over the past 2 years? And how do you think it's going to evolve on working parents in particular? And feel free to bring in your own experience on this.
So looking back at the last 2 years, I have to grab onto the situation, the trauma, the pandemic, what we all came through. And in some ways it's bittersweet for me, because obviously we've had a massive acceleration in remote work adoption, but only one type of remote work adoption, and that's work from home, which is a very specific type of remote work because you choose one place. And during the pandemic, we were all forced to that place. And many of the experts like myself, we kept repeating and we kept saying, remember, this is emergency working from home in a crisis. It's not true remote work. So that's where we're coming from. That's what we've experienced. And the bittersweet part, as I said, is we've got that bitterness of coming through the pandemic together. The sweetness, the light, is what it's opened up for people. 97% of people want to work remotely if they can at some point, or continuing in the future, from a sample of 2,200 almost in the Buffer State of Remote report recently released. So there's the statistics. People have had a taste of it, and that was just working from home. Now we need to move to looking at work from anywhere as a concept and adopting that, and look at the benefits it can bring us all.
Oh, that is a high number, 97%. Okay, here we are.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, so John, given that your company, the Work from Anywhere team, how do you feel this has changed the perception, like where we've been and where we're going? How do you feel this has changed the perception of what it means, to work from home compared to working from anywhere? Like the kind of lifestyle that it represents, and who can access it working from anywhere?
Well, there's a couple of key themes here that are tying this all together. I call it this little triangle of work from anywhere. You've got the companies, you've got the destinations, and you've got the individual families.
Yeah.
First of all, for the companies, we're starting to see some tangible open source results of the impact of work from anywhere. Look at Airbnb. Their careers page went from 400,000 visitors a month to just under 900,000 a month. Like, they over doubled the visitors to their careers webpage the month after they announced work from anywhere. Take a look at Spotify. When they announced their work from anywhere policy over the last year, they've seen a 15% reduction in attrition. I mean, are you as an employer measuring the attrition you're experiencing by not having a work from anywhere policy, or the loss of good candidates that you're missing out on, for example? American Airlines, they saw pre-pandemic mixed travel between leisure and business was 20 to 25% pre-pandemic. It's now 50 to 55%. The majority of travel is mixed. We're not just traveling for just business or just leisure. So from the company perspective, the game has changed in a big way. You look at it from the destination perspective as well, because that's also interlinked. We're seeing, for example, the likes of the Barbados Welcome Stamp. They had $100 million that they got from their digital nomad / work from anywhere remote workers coming to visit because of their digital nomad visa they got. We also saw Bermuda. They had $28 million we saw in the last week. Mita Carman posted some great stuff on this as well. So the tangible benefits, for the likes of destinations, that, for example, Barbados has spent decades building up their cruise passenger category, and in the space of a year or two, they've gotten a massive bump from targeting this segment that we're speaking about. And then you look at it from the individual perspective, and we're seeing the shift that, Rowena talked about. It's been a shift in values over the course of the last couple of years. And that's the biggest thing. For me, what can replace our little fella Barra coming up and giving me a hug in my office during the day? I'm sorry, there's no 9-to-5 job, 5 days in the office is ever going to replace that. You can put whatever number you're going to pay me, I'm not going to accept it, because my values, that's where it's so tied into my own values. And we're seeing as well, look at Boundless here, the event in Sintra, the ability to immerse yourself in the local culture is powerful. And that's an educating accelerator for our kids as well, and for us personally as well as parents.
Oh, the shift of values, and I'm hearing that again from the destination perspective, the individual perspective even, and a company perspective as we're speaking about today. And so getting to the juicy aspect here of what we're here about for working parents and families, let's talk about the challenges. Let's talk about the challenges as you all represent families who have embraced this culture, this lifestyle, the work from anywhere lifestyle. What have been the biggest challenges for you? And what are some of the solutions or ways you're navigating them?
Cool. I can go.
Yeah, go for it.
I've been doing this nomadic life for a very long time. And when my kids were born, the first one about 4 years ago in New York City, I decided that I'm going to continue being a digital nomad and a work from anywhere kind of person. So I kind of hacked it together, and I was like, this life in the US doesn't make a lot of sense. I have to pay so much money for childcare, for where I live, taxes, property taxes, insurance, all kinds of stuff, that it was adding up to thousands of dollars. And I knew I could hack this for a lot less going somewhere else in Europe. So that's what we did, packed the bags, the kids got a passport, and have been doing it ever since. However, just recently I discovered Boundless, and it's been a really cool experience because the challenges of doing it on your own is that there's a lot of logistical stuff you have to figure out. You have to figure out first, obviously, where you're staying, where are your kids going to school. I usually put them in the system, whatever local system there was, but there's a lot of differentiation from system to system. So I go from Mexico to Costa Rica to Croatia to Albania. So they're going through many different ways of schooling. They're going, speaking like one language in one country, and then 3 months later another language. And also they're not really getting community. So we're traveling alone as parents with the kids. It's quite isolating. So yes, we do have this amazing time and we're experiencing a culture, but we're not making any friends anywhere, nor are we commingling with other families. So that's why I think the big difference is with my experience here at Boundless. But maybe I'll just keep on the challenges where, yeah, it's been really tough to do it on your own. And I get people ask me all the time because they see me in all these locations. They're like, how do you do this? I can't even imagine doing it. And it's cool that now Boundless exists because it can be like, well, you can just, do it, with them. And you can go to Portugal and Italy and Greece and just have this amazing experience with your kids in an education system that's experiential, and they can carry on from country to country versus being kind of like all over the place wherever we used to take them. So
Yeah, I'm hearing this awareness of your adaptability and the awareness of the need of community, though the lack of community when doing this as a family. Reka, how about you? Challenges, solutions?
Yeah, same thing, just to add on what she said, it is very isolating, right? Especially living this digital nomad lifestyle as a family, because as a family, as a mother or father, you want to bring so many experiences to your child. I think we've all experienced firsthand how much a child grows with every new experience that they have, right? Taking a child out of their normal comfort zone pushes them, propels them. First there's this, we talk about this at the education center, there's this zone of fear that comes in first, right? The unknown. You don't really know what's happening. You start making excuses. You're not sure what's coming. But if you can propel not only adults and families, but children themselves and teach them that, hey, how can we get out of this comfort zone and then this fear zone? That's when you propel a child into a learning zone, into a growth zone. And that on its own, is, I think, you're equipping children with so many more skills, skills that we need for this unknown future that's coming. How do we teach children to be in this growth zone? How do we give them more the capabilities to be more creative, to be more collaborative, to know how to work in a group, how to be more adaptable, how to be resilient? And these are all things that our amazing team, our Boundless Education team, has developed internally. And what I think is most powerful, like you guys touched upon, is the community, right? Not only for the parents, because now you're not doing this alone. You have this whole community of people you're having this shared experience with, but even more so for the children, right? Because the children then have these other kids from around the world who are having the same experience from them. And even though everyone is kind of out of their comfort zone, we're still giving them this common thread, this commonality, that no matter what location or that they happen to be in, at least with Boundless, you're seeing the similar faces. You're having the similar experiences within the education. They're all working on the same projects. So I think it's so empowering for a child. It's life-changing. It's transformational. That's the word. And I always, I don't want to throw big words around, but I truly believe that what we're building is transformational for children. And something you said, John, that I love is that we're also breaking that divide that exists between home, school, and family, right? There's such a divide in the way our system is set up, our lifestyle is set up.
Yeah.
And through experiences like this and opportunities, you're connecting families to education. Like one thing we do at Boundless is we have a period called Endeavor Time, where we leverage the amazing people who are already living this lifestyle and staying with us at Boundless and bring them into the classroom and have them talk about their own zone of genius with our explorers, with the kids, And so not only are you breaking the divide that only educators are the ones who teach our kids, but the amazing people within the community can bring in their skills, well, whether it's being a silver Olympic medalist, like Jamie's going to come in next week and talk to our explorers about the mindset that it requires to be an Olympian. Just yesterday we had an expert in investment come in and talk about investing with the children, and from the youngest children they're now being exposed to so much more, and from people who are actually passionate about these things. So I think it's literally shifting the whole dynamic around how people live, how they work, and now how children learn.
And as you spoke about the fear, that comfort zone space, and leaving that, we as adults are experiencing that ourselves as we're experiencing these new lifestyles, and we're doing it together. in a shared experience, and the kids get to do that now in a shared experience. And as we know, that's so important for our, kids, family first, right? And how about anyone else would like to share the challenges and solutions that you're finding in this space?
Well, I've said I've found my tribe here, right? And it means so much because when we would travel, when our daughter was younger, when we would travel and we talked to other families that were more based and fixed, they would exchange stories like, we can't go to that hot country because X or Y child, my daughter or my son won't sleep because it's too hot. And I was there going, but we kind of got that figured out because we do X, Y, and Z because we travel so much, or we have a bedtime ritual or whatever. And over time, I began to realize that I was in the minority. My family was in the minority in that thinking and in our experience of traveling. And that's where it is so life-changing, finding the community in these different locations, but also that mindset of being brave and stepping outside comfort zones. Mm-hmm. So I think for all of us here on the panel, you may have some sort of base, but we are the type of people that put priority in our values to travel. So when we've had a conversation with our 8-year-old, when we talked about our family values, and values is a really important word, travel, exploring, experience, adventure is up there in all those guises. And for others, it's something that they just do a little bit every year. For us, it's vital, it's a lifeline, it's something that, again, is up there in our values as a family. And I think coming from the more mainstream package holiday, weekend away vibe, it's so different, And that's why, for us, it becomes a way of life, and that's why, again, I feel here, I've found that tribe, and the challenge before was more isolating. It was where I felt we're the exception, and I don't feel the exception anymore, and our family doesn't.
Just tying into that, I mean, for us, for our own experience, for example, we went to Thailand before, we spent 6 months there, we went back there again at Christmas, but in that kids' education piece is really important, and it's a big problem. We did a survey, early last year, and it was the number one pain point for parents. It's a lot of people are wanting to explore going abroad for a period of time. I think what's really missing at the moment in the world is, one place you can go to and find out, I want to go to this country. What is their approach interculturally from how they, approach families, for example? Some countries are very welcoming of kids. Some are maybe less so. That's already an interesting data point. But then also, what are the solutions? For example, Boundless is a fantastic solution for a certain segment, for a certain education style. There'll be others who might want something different, or the different age segments as well. It would be great. I would be craving having one place to go to, almost like an Airbnb of kids' education. Would be fantastic, and whatever model, because we can see that as well within the community. Some are into homeschooling, some are into more bricks and mortar, some want something a local educational style, some want to be an international system, and so all these different segments. I think there is something really powerful in there, but I think what's going on in Boundless is really targeting a particular niche very powerfully, and I think there's more of these solutions that we see coming out will really help.
As you're speaking, John, I'm seeing this theme, with all of us about looking at personalizing, figuring out what works for you as a family, like as you mentioned, Ro, about values, family values, really figuring out what works for each of us. And oftentimes we figure out that as we go, and I'll just ask this as a question. So for the people who are looking to work from anywhere too, or employers looking to create that space, what helped you figure that out for yourself?
I guess for employers, this is really important to encourage, first of all, freedom and flexibility in both time and location. Mm-hmm. So this is the number one benefit that we see in the benefit sphere that employers can give to employees and contractors. So if you're giving them this type of flexibility, they're already so much more loyal to you. But also you open the door to this type of life, which is life-changing for many, many companies, people and their families, to be honest. And companies should definitely try to do this. It could be obviously the next benefit that they offer to their teams. And I would absolutely encourage them to do so, because they will see happier teams, more productive, more efficient, more revenue is going to come in. And you're gifting these people the beauty of travel and community and being with people and education. So I would absolutely advise this, and I see a lot of companies that kind of want to do this but don't know how. And the next thing I want to mention is that there is solutions in terms of you offering this to your team. So one is, how do I hire people and how can they work from anywhere in the world? Obviously, John is a tax consultant, so he works with all kinds of companies that and helps them figure out the risk of tax depending on where people want to move around. Our company handles health insurance. So a lot of people are like, oh my God, what about health insurance? You know, I have it in the US. How does it work here? If I'm 3 months in Sintra and then 3 months in Syros, Greece, 3 months in Italy, does it travel with me? Yes, it does. So there is a company for that. And there's like so many more solutions that, you know, Rowan as a consultant offers. So definitely look, because there is solutions. Don't be scared. Oh my God, like we can't do this.
Just to tie into that as well, a really important point is a lot of companies say, oh, I'm worried about, it could be the insurance risk, it could be the tax risk, the employment law, the visa, whatever it is. And it's absolutely fair enough to have the worries about what could it cost, but the other side of the equation is what will it cost if you do nothing? You know, will you lose your best talent? Would you not be able to get the best employees? And I think putting in place a kind of an ROI, like a return on investment framework, where you have, you know, the countries you're looking to allow for how long or what level of flexibility do you want to be able to give. You know, you can measure the risk that you're taking on and likewise measure the impact once you bring something on. Look at the impact of the likes of the Airbnb policy. So I think taking that kind of ROI mentality to it and having the data points where you're able to track the attrition rate or whatnot and link it to remote work or work from anywhere policies as well.
And then just to add, because it's not all or nothing, because it's all a progression, it's an evolution and a reiteration. Prior to COVID, when I was researching and studying what was remote work, what is all this distributed work and distributed teams, we have companies out there that have been doing this for years. People continuously forget. This is not new. It was niche and it was the exception pre-COVID. But out there we have the GitLabs, the Automatics, the Hotjars, the Buffers that I've already quoted, doing it for more than 20 years, some of them, and they already know how to adopt and bring on a lot of these policies. Their benefits packages already look to this. They already offer novel things. So I would also encourage any employers to look to that best practice, contact me if they want specific examples, but also to think about trying small things, trying things out. And when I work with founders, when I work with companies, senior executives, I ask them, when have you worked away from your home office? It's a very simple thing. When have you been to a co-working, like we're all here today doing this wonderful event? When have you gone mobile on the road and even worked from a local location? And it starts to get them realizing, especially coming out of COVID, that there is more to this. And those founders, those executives need to try it as well, so that then they can understand the change they're trying to drive.
I was just going to add that I think one thing we're learning from our members and the people who are staying with us in our Boundless community is that, you know, the amount of fulfillment it brings these people to be able to live this new lifestyle where you're working from, not only are you working from anywhere, but your children are with you and you're having these new experiences. You're walking from your co-working space to your home to drop off your kids at the education center. Everything is within a walkable distance. I think what we've heard, and I've experienced myself, it brings people so much fulfillment. And what company, you know, is not aware that if an employee is happy and fulfilled, they're going to bring 200% of themselves when it's time for them to execute their work or their job. So not only are you, you know, giving them the flexibility to live a different way, but I think you're empowering them to bring the next level of, you know, what type of work they bring to your organization, because you're giving them the opportunity to feel more fulfilled in the way they live their lives.
Spot on, Rega. Yeah, I'll speak from the personal experience of being here and being boundless here with Boundless Life. It has been life-changing for our family. So absolutely. And so let's talk about that motivation space of what actually motivates us to do this, to pursue this work from anywhere life.
I can speak for myself only because I have the mic first, but I think for me, what motivates me is the change I've seen in my children. Like we've always traveled from, like, you know, the minute my son was born, eight weeks we were on a plane, you know, somewhere. And the amount of just personal growth that I see, that, you know, every child, I see it, not only my children, but the children that are with us at Boundless, how much they grow as individuals, how much they they grow in the way that they see the world and how, they see, I find the effect is that they see everyone more like themselves than different, and I find the effects that has on a young child and on the impact they will have in the future and who they're becoming. It's very hard to go back to a traditional lifestyle after you've seen the effects that it's had on little people, and how much they expand and grow. To me, that's my biggest motivation to build this and live that lifestyle.
Yeah, just a very tangible example. We, Barra, my 1-year-old, he wasn't sleeping for 4 months in a row. We were tearing our hair out, we were going crazy. And we booked a 5-week trip to Thailand. And literally our middle child, Esme, was middle child. He was a little bit tricky, a little bit difficult in finding her feet and finding her personality. Both of them. The day we landed in Phuket, all of a sudden, he starts sleeping through the night, and she was just amazing the change. And the same thing when we came here to Portugal as well, exactly the same thing. And sometimes our kids, it can be a different environment, a different energy, a different culture, different food, different experience, vitamin D. I mean, it can be whatever it is that can have that impact. But then you go into the deeper, long-lasting, peel back the onion impact of getting deeper into another culture. And I'm seeing now, for example, the girls are starting to, speak Portuguese. They're here a couple of months. They're so malleable. They're so agile. Our kids are. And what is that going to, that gift that we're giving them for the rest of their lives? I mean, you can't measure the impact of that.
Totally, and just to add a different perspective on that, it's so much talk and overhype about resilience. That word resilience coming out of the pandemic, but a resilient child that's comfortable in a new place, in a new group. That's what I see in my daughter. That's why there's days it's difficult doing this. It's not easy. Nothing in life is easy. But my golly gosh, is it worth it when you see them running to a new group, engage, be confident, be comfortable. Sometimes she is shy. Of course she is. Every human being is. But she knows from previous experience she can get through that. And more importantly, because this is underestimated, the parents know she can because they've seen it. Yes. And then your confidence comes across, that you're calm, even though she might be freaking out. So I find it really interesting. And then I have another personal level for a reason or motivation for wanting to live this life. When we moved from Dublin to Spain and we changed our lifestyle and her health and we made her well again, that global mobility saved our family's life, literally. So why I do this and why it's so personal, why our family does this, I never want to be trapped in one place and never feel. I mean, we've just come through with the pandemic. So when I can go, we can go, and we can travel, I will take that opportunity. And isn't it interesting in recent weeks and months to see, the climate refugees as well? Because honestly, love Zaragoza, but it's melting hot there now. So Portugal is much better. So I mean, I'm giving some light examples, but it's actually quite serious in the world that we live in. And for some people, that's why being able to move as a family or individually is completely life-changing. And that's why we keep doing what we do in life.
I think for me, it's a bit selfish. I think a lot of you have said about the kids, which is amazing. But I tend to be very selfish because I want to make sure I satisfy my inner child before my child gets taken care of. And my inner child wants to feel alive. And when I travel, I feel alive. And I've been to over 80 countries because I want to land in a place and just feel wonder again and just look around and take it all in and really feel alive. I feel like so many of us are dead inside because we are stuck to a location. We have to show up every day to a concrete box that we were told, this is your office, this is your cubicle, good luck. I mean, what kind of life is that? I mean, literally, that's a 100-year-old model that we're being made to do today. And I just have a huge problem with that because it's not conducive to life. It's not conducive to living my best life personally, and so that I can give my best to my child. So what I want to portray for those people that have this opportunity to really look into taking it. You know that, in the US, we have a very sedentary lifestyle. We drive everywhere. We don't really meet with our neighbors. We don't even know who our neighbor is, and we can be there for 20 years. And it just makes no sense when you can see a different way of living, being here in Sintra, a place where people have lived for 12,000 years. And it's amazing. The history comes through. It just seeps into your veins. Whereas, you're in whatever blah town, Arizona, or I don't want to say something bad, but really take this as an opportunity, ask someone how to do this, message any of us, we can help you, message Boundless, and get going.
Lona, I'm hearing in from each of you this intentionality of again, value-based living, what's most important to you. And also, Lona, as you mentioned, this, satisfying that inner child, that's creating that ripple effect, right? It's following your heart, and doing something that you're passionate about. And the impact, the ripple that makes for your children, for families, for our work, for our communities. And I'll add to this, it's much easier to do that when you're surrounded by people. So even just finding, for example, Boundless, just on a whim, we by chance found, or I'll say serendipitously, found Boundless Life, it felt immediately more possible because you're hearing people talk about it. And that's very motivating because when you are in that space that, tied down, feeling like you're tied down, whether it's physically or energetically or emotionally, it can feel like it's not possible. So when this conversation, one thing that I also hope comes from it is that we're sharing that space that it is possible, even when we're not sure as an employer or as a family, a working parent. And so as we're wrapping up here, what I'd love to ask each of you is, what advice do you have specifically for employers, though? Specifically for employers who are supporting working parents, considering the work from anywhere, possibility here, short-term or long-term. What advice do you have for them?
To go back to the point about looking to the remote-first companies that have existed, and if we take Hotjar, for example, I was checking this out earlier, so I'm briefed. So Hotjar are already looking to these benefits and rewards that support their fully remote employees. For example, it's $2,000 a year stipend to work in any co-working space, but also $2,000 a year for their American remote-based employees to work collaboratively with their teams across the States and meet up. So they're already supporting making those connections with the other team members within that geographic expanse. And then therefore, they're already seeing that people want to move around. They don't just work from home. They don't just want to be in the one place. So look to the best practice. GitLab as well has got different days they give off. Give vacation days across the world. One of which is Friends and Family Day, which was a big initiative last year as well in their practices. So look to the fully remote companies. Look to how they are being family friendly, and they're starting to move as well to looking at how they can incorporate travel. Help Scout, which has been remote for many years, also provides a stipend for travel as well for their remote employees. So we already see the trends coming, and so what I'm saying to anyone listening that's interested is to look to that remote company's best practice, and you'll see that that's the way it's moving. Even some of their rewards that you're going to look at are going to be novel to you because they're already leading the way in this space.
So many more possibilities out there than existed 10 years ago. For example, the different ways that you can enable this. Traditionally it was essentially either get somebody hired via a legal entity or do an interbranch or interlegal entity transfer, or maybe it was the contractor route, and that was it. Those two options. And what's happened in the last 2 years is we've seen the explosion of employers of record, the likes of Deal, Remote, and many others. They've just exploded with the growth that they've seen. They're certainly an option in certain circumstances. And digital nomad visas, some of them are terrible, some of them are great. It really depends. You've got to look at the detail. But the ones that are good, wow, are they a great way to add the ability for employees to dip their toes into a country And it covers a lot of the risks that you need to be able to cover from an employer perspective. So just look at the different options. We have a list and a blog post on our website with all the companies that we research and a link to their hire from our policies, their work from our policies, and how long they're doing it for if it's disclosed. And the likes of Rowena and Lone as well, they have plenty of different contacts. So we're all there to help as a community, to help if anyone does have any questions on it.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, what I'll add to that, because you guys said some great points, the last thing I would say is that at Y Combinator, which is one of the best accelerators in the world, they say that you should build products people want, which is true, because if you don't build something that people want, that they won't buy it, then you don't have a company. And what I tell leaders and founders is to build companies that actually people want to be at. So ask your people, what do they want? What do they want from this benefits package? We're seeing all these great examples from the Automatics, the Hotjars, the GitLabs. They already exist. Take all of them down, write them in a list, and then have your people vote. Go through an independent voting and then see what comes up at the top and implement those and do it every 6 months, because more benefits come around. And maybe, Boundless could be on that list. It's like you go for 1 month with Boundless, and that could be one of the benefits, and maybe it can rank up really high because people want to try it with their families. But definitely ask them because they will tell you what they want.
Just to add to that, I think another thing companies should think about is when they're doing team building, right? So when they're looking for a place to bring their whole entire team together to make deeper relationships, living a lifestyle like this enables that, right? With all the members that are staying with us, the connections that you make with other families that you're having these shared experiences with will last forever. From the cohorts that we've had so far, these families, even if they've left and gone back home, the relationship that they made with the other members will stay forever. So I think from a company standpoint, to be able to consider, organizations like Boundless to do team building, off-site events, or maybe bring your entire team here for a cohort, and to see, I'm sure, the effects that will have long-term on bringing your organization together, ensuring you're all aligned on the same values because you're now sharing these experiences, I think could be transformational.
But you have to be a small company to do that, right?
No, we can make anything
Because
work.
we're 170 people, so it'd be times 4.
Get creative. We'll figure it out. All the possibilities.
We can make it happen.
All the possibilities. We've covered so much, and I'm floored. I'm learning so much hearing from each of you about your experiences, your insights, and your depth of knowledge. And I know people have questions for you. So what I'd love to do right now is hand it over to the audience. And if anyone has a question to ask.
Yeah, for those of you who have been doing this long term, or working with companies and families who have been doing this long term, what do you see are the challenges and opportunities, particularly for well-being, when it comes to longevity in doing remote work or traveling?
I get that well-being one. I get that well-being one. So that's really interesting, because actually I was talking to someone last night to answer that for you, I think in a practical example. And I said, we're at Boundless. Myself and my husband have been working, and Durin, our daughter's getting an amazing education. She's topping up her English because she's bilingual, because we live in Spain. So that's been a really important element for us here. She's getting tailored English support, so that's wonderful. But we're not spending all our 8 weeks in 7-8 weeks in Portugal working. We remote work so that we can travel as well. So at the end of this month, we're taking, or after the 4 weeks, we're taking 2 weeks off to do nothing, right? To travel, but not to work. So the point being that just because you can work from everywhere doesn't mean you should work from everywhere or anywhere. And I know that's a really simple message, but that's what I want to get across to people, because there's also an element as the responsible professionals and adults that we realize that travel does support well-being because we're going to a different place, but we still need to have those key awareness of our own self-awareness, our own well-being, and balance in our lives. But just because we go somewhere that we can remote work, we shouldn't always be all remote working, because we're not going to experience that place. So Boundless does provide that support when you're here, but it's interesting as well, Larissa, that August is well-being month here, and I've been enjoying yoga out here, and we've been doing hiking, and there's different other things. So the piece I would put there is just because you can work and travel doesn't mean you should work all the time, and you need to find that balance individually and figure it out for yourself. And therefore, in your values or in your top 10 things or your North Star, well-being needs to be there, and don't work all the time. Don't work all the time.
Just to add to that as well, a very simple tip as well. If you look at when we work from anywhere, there's 3 different value sets that impact us and how we, where we're working and how we're working. You've got your individual personality, the values we have as individual. Like Lona spoke about that, that inner child, and I feel that spoke to me as well. We then have, for example, the company culture. So is your company culture open to it that you work in, for example? Some might not be. Some might be very against it. So understanding that side of it, but also the national culture. When we go to another country, some, those national cultural dimensions, will they have friction points with our individual values or our company values? And understanding that is very important. There are actually intercultural data tools and dimensions. You can compare your culture or your personality to the culture you're going to. And doing that research to identify, will that be a friction point for the kids, for myself, for experience there, or it can be a massive benefit. Sometimes going to a different culture can be fantastic, but just researching that aspect of it can often go, that can cause a friction point from the well-being perspective if you haven't done your research, let's say.
It's really interesting because I tend to be an overworker, so I work quite a lot, especially if I am at home, let's say in the US. That's where I pay my taxes, but not really that much at home. But I tend to overwork, so I completely understand your question, and this is a problem that many people have, because working from home equates many times to overworking, and we're seeing all the data, and Rowena can mention all of the data to you. But what's been very interesting at Boundless is that you have those moments that actually you can do the yoga, you can go to a spa, you can go to the beach, you can go to the pool, and actually it kind of makes you not work that much, which is great, because it gives you that balance and it makes it more sustainable for you in the long run. Otherwise, if you're regulating this on your own, you could just be, somewhere in Mexico just working, 12 hours a day, which I'm guilty of doing many times, and usually my husband has to pull me away from the laptop. Whereas here it's like really cool because there's so many things kind of like built in, a lot of social interaction, which makes it much more fun. It actually makes me a better worker at the end of the day because I'm more relaxed, I'm getting new ideas, like for example, from Larissa, I learned that I could block off my calendar on Fridays and just call it learning day because I need to learn and to get better and to, better myself each day. So that's something that I've learned here, like I wouldn't have learned that if I was just like working at my laptop for 12 hours. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, to add on that, I think that's the beauty of being in a community of like-minded individuals, right? Because you're also then living in this culture and this community of other people who are trying to prioritize well-being. So when you forget, like many of us do, and there's already programming available, there's yoga every Monday and Wednesday, every Saturday we're going to the beach, or there's always experiences kind of already pre-planned for you. Mm-hmm. It's a reminder that, hey, it's true, I need to turn off now and plug into me, right? Plug into my inner child and model what I want for my own children, myself as well. So I think being in that community of like-minded individuals is also very powerful in maintaining well-being.
So my husband and I are planning to move abroad next year. We're going to right before the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened. One of the things that our family has brought up to us as we talk to them about this is just a worry of staying in touch and keeping a relationship with our almost 4-year-old. For those of you who have kids and have been traveling for a while, do you have any strategies or tactics of how you keep in touch with your family and your community back home? And I guess it's just FaceTime, or is there anything else?
I can take that one. That was like a big concern for me as well, just individually, because I'm very close to my parents, to my siblings, to my community. Yeah. And the beauty that I see is that so much of my family wants to come visit me wherever I am. So it's funny, like they're actually taking time out of their schedules without me even offering. Like this was a concern though for me. And like, my brother-in-law is coming with his family, my brother, it's like they're almost staggering their visits. Yeah. And at one point I had to tell my husband, like, babe, like, are we going to get any time just the 4 it's beautiful though. And I can tell you that, like now, I was here for 6 months with my family, and then I went home for the summer for 2 months to see my parents, to reconnect with my community. And I can say though, the experiences that I've had with the families that have come and visited me, and we've had now this shared experience abroad and experienced new things together with my nieces and my nephews, like those experiences are so much more meaningful than me going home and like I do all the time in my childhood home, and you know, in this in the comfort zone that I'm typically used to bonding with my family. Now having these shared experiences off-site on a boundless location, it's incredible. And I find even my kids, when we went home for these 2 months, I was so proud to see how much they had to share with their cousins and friends and local community. Like they were just this like little like public speakers about experiences about the world. Like they've become these little world citizens that have so much to share and inspire with the local community that now, you know, more people want to come visit us. So I think it's a concern, but I think once you start living it's like you're almost empowering the rest of your family and your community to have the same experiences. So it's like you're empowering those you love to come with you.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, because exactly what you said, I have to echo it. My mom booked a ticket last week. She's coming next week to visit us. And then I'll meet both my mom and my dad in Estonia. But yeah, like they'll come wherever we are. So it depends. I guess maybe some people are not as easy to travel. But you know, being an immigrant in the U.S. and keeping in touch with family has been something that I've had to do so long. And usually it's those like FaceTimes that you have with your family, and exactly like giving them permission to also explore and see the world.
I was just going to add to that because my mother can't always travel, so I really identify. I can really identify with that. So some of the things we've done is connected on things like what we collect when we're traveling. We collect souvenirs. And she knows that, and we send pictures all the time of the different fridge magnets, for example, and our daughter talks about it because she's got an extensive collection. We connect on telling us travel story when we do the call, so it's again intention. So to keep my mum in the story with how we're living, we always try and have a catch-up call afterwards, and Doireann, our daughter, tells the story about where we've been and what she's done, and the fridge magnets are the kind of physical thing with that. So I'm just giving you some hints, or maybe postcards, old school but works. Send a postcard, it's a talking point. So again, with that physical connection to where you've been, and that's been some of the practical ways we've stayed connected. And then when she can travel, she travels. But I hear you, because it can be. We did it when Doireann was 3.5, and it is a time where there's strong connection in family. So again, ask all the other parents and families here, because you're going to get loads of good advice on that, because it is not a tension point, but it is a point of consideration for families doing this.
And just a very, very quick one, and this is one we did, and it's basically when I was traveling, and we could do it with the grandparents as well, is basically record a video, the grandparents could do it, and say, listen, I'm going to hide one of your teddies in the house somewhere. You can do it every Friday morning or Saturday morning or whatnot, yeah, and it's granny or granddad doing a video saying that we've got your toy, we're going to hide it somewhere basically, and then you show it to the kids. They go and try and find it basically, and then you can put them in touch with granny and granddad afterwards. You can build some rituals with, you know, with video, things like that are a bit dynamic, that help create that connection. And of course, you still need to be able to, meet them physically face to face every now and again. I get that, but there are ways that we can try and find other creative ways to create that connection.
Yeah, I'm hearing this in these intentional ways, and also these doors that are being opened up by you doing what you're, is calling to you as families, is opening doors for others to connect in ways, in whether they're actually physically traveling or just hearing stories through that. And speaking from my experience, this is all very new to me. Our family just sold our things. We're starting the boundless life, living abroad, and just this month we're really very new to this. So I'm learning as we go too. So I'm picking up these tips. Thank you very much about how to stay connected deeply with family.
To add to that, I think what Boundless Life does is when you're in a home, when you've established a home for 3 months, you're opening your home to your family. I have grown kids, and they spent a week with us in Greece. And it was the most incredible experience because we were completely connected. Whereas if we were home, it would be, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this. But they were coming into a home that was set up away from home. And another way we've connected with grandparents, I have an 87-year-old mother who still travels and is ready to come, but when we visited the Acropolis, we would video chat her from there. So with the three boys, they would go, oh, Granny, look at this, look at this, look at this. We were at the beach, we video called. Even if it's for 2 minutes, the impact that the grandparents, that they are thinking of the grandparents there, and you're thinking of the parents, that's a really big connection instead of, hey, Mom, can you look after my kids, sort of thing, which we tend to do when we're at home. So that 2 minutes on a video call with family to involve them in the excitement and the experience is very powerful. And then inviting them into your temporary home and having that connection there that you wouldn't have at home, both of those have been exceptional.
So I work in HR for a remote company, and I'm just keen to find out, for companies who are set up for remote working for their employees, which benefit do you feel would add the most value to employees who can work anywhere? Is there anything else that would promote their well-being, or which benefit do you feel would add the most value and be useful for people who already can work from anywhere and flexibly?
So on a practical level, if you don't already do it, I really feel co-working is really underrated, and something like adding a stipend or looking at the Croissant app, which you can find local co-working spaces, because a lot of the established remote work community use co-working already. I just want to get the rhetoric clear around co-working, okay? For families as well, it can be really good because a new baby arrives, something changes in the house you live in, there's building works. People, again, need to be pulled away from that home office, and then they can see the option of going to co-working. The research shows as well, and many remote companies are innovative, entrepreneurial, I'm sure yours is as well, Gemma, that it fosters innovation. So think of what's happening here in our co-working, how we're talking, how we're sharing, how there's an event, how we're supporting each other, we're learning from each other. That happens in neighbourhood co-working as well. So I would look at that first, because it's what a lot of the different remote companies do. I'd also look at that point on well-being in general and what feels better and being open to it. So to Lona's point, ask your workers, ask your employees, feel around, but bring out those themes, bring out the themes like travel, well-being, these things that are emerging, and be open to getting the feedback on the rewards and benefits, and do that kind of open source of getting feedback, trying things out. So that would be my best piece of advice. And then lastly, because I've already mentioned it, is go to the leaders in the company, go to the founders and say, this is what we're thinking in HR. What have you tried? Not what they think. What have you tried? Have you experienced any of these things? Because that's where we drive the change, because they'll have opinions often, they'll read something, but they haven't tried it. So again, even get out to the co-working, have you travelled and worked, etc. So that would be my advice on how to approach that. John?
Yeah, I go back to what Lona said, ask your employees. What we're finding now is the hyper personalisation of work. And the needs and wants of remote working parents will be very different to those who are just coming into the workforce. So asking them, and the other thing I would say is, there are tools out there that you can offer that can really meet a pain point, and they're not very expensive. I mean, there's a new one after it came out this week called Furry Nomad. I met the founder in Lisbon last week. It's a tax residency tracker app. It doesn't cost very much, but it helps the individual to manage their tax residency risk. There are others as well. Even for example, Nomad List. It doesn't cost very much. Offering that as a benefit doesn't cost very much, but it's a high impact. Tools like what Safety Wing is doing, for example. There's lots of different tools out there that don't have to cost a whole bunch, but can protect the company from a risk perspective and have a high impact for the individuals. But again, it comes back to asking them first. The worst thing is to impose something without asking them. Ask them and find out what they find most relevant. Understand your segments. Understand the segments of the remote working parents versus the other different segments that exist.
If we're looking at this from a big picture, this entire conversation today, the words that are coming up for me are trailblazing. This group of what we're doing, the idea around working from anywhere is truly trailblazing. And in particular, it's very personalizing. As you just mentioned, John, it's personalizing what's most important to you as for yourself, for your inner child, for your family, for your children, and then also for work. So from an employer's perspective, for them and their culture, that what they're cultivating and what they're creating. So I want to firstly thank each of you for trailblazing and showing us how to do this, how to go about it, and to give us more courage to, to follow what we really want to create for ourselves, and to give courage to, the employers who are creating this and trailblazing new ways to do things as well. I know. Woo! Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the panel today, for sharing your wisdom. And thank you for Boundless Life for hosting this special event.
Thank you.